Hey guys, Raider here. Hope you're all doing great and having a fantastic day. In today's video, we are doing the full complete review of the Samsung Galaxy Book2 Pro 360. I've had it since March 28th. I'm on my 12th day with it. This is my daily driver, and I have been enjoying it very much. This is a nice upgrade from last year's model. In this video, we're going to cover all the specs. We're going to take a look at the keyboard, trackpad, the I/O. We're also going to touch base on the benchmarks, the gaming performance. We're going to take a real detailed look at the display. We're going to spend some time talking about the display because I know that's the elephant in the room. 1080p here in 2022. We'll definitely talk about it. We're going to talk about the audio. We're going to talk about the webcam. We're also going to discuss why you may want to consider a Samsung laptop over all the other machines that are out there. We're also going to cover some notes that I've been taking along the way, just covering the details of what it's like to own this over the period of time, as well as the issues that Samsung has addressed since last year's model. In addition to that, we're going to talk about what it's like to own this the first couple of days, because it's a little rough and rocky at first, as it is with most laptops. Alright guys, without further ado, let's jump right into it. The model that I have is the fully maxed out 15.6-inch version. This is a graphite edition. There are 3 color options. This comes in silver, burgundy, and graphite. And if you're worried about fingerprints, here's the deal guys. Silver is your best option. It will show the least amount of prints. Graphite is your second best option. I think it does a pretty good job. It does handle fingerprints a little bit better than last year's Mystic Navy option. However, it is still a bit of a fingerprint magnet, and the worst one of them all is the burgundy option. A lot of folks are complaining about fingerprints getting picked up on that one easily. This laptop features Windows 11 Home with One UI Book 4 baked in, which helps streamline the Samsung application experience with the Windows experience. We have Intel 12th Gen Alder Lake. This features Intel's brand new type of chip. This is their P-Series chip, P standing for performance. So instead of having one type of core like we had in our Ultrabook series prior to this, which are all the U-Series CPUs, we now have separate performance and efficiency cores. In addition to that, we also have the S Pen, which is included in the box. No additional charge, and they did make some improvements to the S Pen in this year's model compared to last year's. We'll show a little comparison between it and also the Tab S8 Ultra a little bit later in the video. For the display, we have a 1080p, which is full HD, 60 Hz, coming in at roughly 360 to 400 nits, depending on where you look of brightness, which is a 33% improvement over last year's. And also note this is a 16:9 aspect ratio. New for this year is a 1080p webcam as opposed to last year's 720p, and we also get intelligent framing, which is Samsung's take on Apple's auto tracking feature, which basically keeps you in frame as you move around. We'll test that out a little bit later. For the audio, we have 2 down-firing 5-watt AKG tuned speakers that also feature Dolby Atmos. And we're going to do a quick test of this one compared to last year's model to show the audio difference. I did do that in the unboxing, but that was a little bit of a faltered test because I forgot to enable Dolby Atmos on this machine, and that makes a huge difference. We're going to see what that entails here in a little bit as well. For ports, we have one 3.5mm audio jack, one USB-C, we have one micro SD card slot. On the left side, we have one Thunderbolt 4 port, which supports up to 40 megabits per second data throughput, as well as sending video out to 3 4K 60 FPS screens. In addition to that, there's one more USB-C port right next to it as well. For internal storage, we have both a 512GB and 1TB SSD options. Please note that these are PCI Gen 3, they're not the latest Gen 4. That's to be expected on like a mid-range type-ish laptop like this. It's not till you get to the really expensive gaming type laptops that you're going to see the Gen 4 implementation. The speeds are pretty good, they're looking good. But one thing to keep in mind too is the primary slot is a 2280 size, or the secondary is a 2230. I want to thank this viewer here for bringing this to my attention too. Appreciate you. And that's important to note if you plan on doing some upgrades to this in the future and if you want to add additional storage. For memory, we have 8GB and 16GB options. We were told there was going to be 32GB options. I have not seen that at all yet. So unfortunately, only 8GB and 16GB. This is maxed out at 16GB here. That's DDR5 memory, so you're looking at a 15 to 20% gain over last year's DDR4, at least in the Ultra notebook space. That varies when you go to desktop machines, but we are seeing quite a big performance boost in the memory area. The price, fully equipped, here in the United States, $1,549 if you didn't get it on the pre-order deals. We're going to talk more about the pricing structure in the why you should consider a Samsung laptop section. Lastly, for the specs, let's talk about the actual dimensions of the device. So this is coming in at 3.1 pounds, 1.4 kilograms. with a thickness of 0.47 inches thick. So we're looking at just under ½ inch thick 1.19 centimeters. For those of you looking to get some type of laptop bag or some type of sleeve to carry it in, we're looking at a length this way of 13.3 inches, which comes out to 35.8 centimeters. And we're looking at the width this way being 9 inches or 23 centimeters. So make sure you get a sleeve that accommodates those dimensions. And the takeaway from the specs really is that you're getting an awesome Super AMOLED display in a 2-in-1 configuration with touch input, with the digitizer layer that's very difficult to see, which is a great thing, which is one of my pet peeves of the HP Spectre line of laptops, is you can really see that digitizer layer in there, and you cannot on this one. It really is transparent, unnoticeable to the eye. And that this is just an ultra sleek, ultra light, all-day battery life type machine. And that's what this is geared for. This is geared for people that are looking for something that's going to last them all day without having to carry some type of power bank or carry your power brick with you to keep this charged. You're going to be able to go easily 9-10 hours. That's what I'm getting. I've been using this for 12 days now. I'm averaging 9 to 10 hours. That's doing benchmarks, loading some games and tools on for testing, doing all these kinds of activities that are kind of more power user type activities, and it's still getting 9 to 10 hours. I would imagine if I were just sitting around watching YouTube like we have it up right now, this thing will easily probably go 14 to 15 hours, no problem. I mean, and I'm at full brightness right now. It'll still go that long. It does a great job on battery life. All right, guys, so before we jump into the benchmarks, one thing I want to touch base on that I don't hear talked about a lot is the keyboard and trackpad on this machine. I absolutely love the keyboard and trackpad. We have a full-size keyboard with a numpad, with a very ginormous size trackpad. The trackpad is glass, precision drivers, so this is about as good as it gets outside of maybe a MacBook Pro. You're not going to be disappointed with the trackpad. And I'm also really digging the chiclet scissor style type keyboard that we have here. I doubt if too many people are going to complain about this keyboard feel. And yes, it is backlit. We have 4 levels of backlighting available, and you can also enable a setting to detect when you're in front of it to turn it on and off. All right, guys, now that we got the specs out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about benchmarks. So first up, we're going to put the speedometer 2.0 results. You can see here we are averaging about 245 on this machine, which is absolutely amazing. Just for reference, that's right in line with the MacBook M1 Max Pro chip. That one is averaging about 250, 270 max. My highest score I've got on this machine is 259, so we are right there with that machine. For contrast, I can tell you that the best score I got on last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360, and we also featured the score in the benchmark video that I did last week, is 210. And for more contrast, here's a screenshot of what we're looking at for the Tab S8 Ultra, 119. So this 245 average is a mind-boggling fast web experience. So benchmarks are looking real good on the website. Next up is Cinebench. Very impressive scores. Check this out, guys. Single core, 1637. We're getting a multi-core of 9179. Let's go ahead and switch over to Geekbench. Single core, 1682. Multi-core, 8699. These are great scores, guys, and if you do look back at that video and you do the comparisons with the MacBook Pro Max and the Lenovo 9i, this is definitely holding its own and scores very well. Definitely no disappointments in the benchmark area. All right, so we're going to briefly touch on gaming. So in that other video, we did a brief look at Overwatch, and you can see here that we are getting around 69 to 70 FPS. I was maxing out around 80 or so. And that's connected to an external monitor. And the reason that we're connected to an external monitor in that video is because we are capped out at 60 FPS on this screen. This is a 60 Hertz monitor, so you're not going to get more than 60 FPS on any game. Even if a game shows you an FPS rating that's higher than that, you're not really seeing that. That just means it's not in sync with the display. So games like Overwatch, the GTA series, Resident Evil, all these games are going to max out at 60 FPS on this machine. It's not a gaming laptop, guys. It really isn't. I mean, it's got an amazing screen. The performance is great, but do keep in mind, this does not have a dedicated GPU. We're apparently going to see the ARC option. From what I see, that is still a mystery. It's still not out. So we're still waiting on the Intel ARC option. Until then, we have these dedicated graphics, and you're not going to get the best gaming performance. It's just not going to happen. It's not a gaming machine. All right, guys, next up, let's talk about the display. So what we have here is basically the same display as last year. A 16:9 aspect ratio, 1920 by 1080p, full HD display, coming in roughly at 33% brighter, 360 to 400 nits, up to 500 nits when viewing HDR10 plus content. To my eyes, This display is absolutely amazing. It is one of the best looking laptop displays I've ever seen. And let's talk about each one of the numbers, guys, because I've been getting a lot of comments since the unboxing. I wish it was 16 by 10. Why did they do 1080p? Why are we not seeing QHD or Ultra HD options at this point? Look, I totally get you, and I would love to see those options, and we should have those options. But I really don't feel like the compromises that Samsung has made are an end-of-the-world type of thing. By having a 1080p screen, the lower resolution, and keeping that brightness down to like the 400 nits mark, we're getting all-day battery life. And that's what this machine is geared towards. It's geared towards people that need to take this on the go and that plan on using it all day. And the second you get rid of this 1080p screen, and the second you get rid of this 16 by 9 aspect ratio, forget about it. You can kiss that goodbye. Think about it, guys. Let's talk about the 16 by 9 aspect ratio first, right? So if we bump this to 16 by 10, which means we make this a little bit less wide and a little more taller, in order to keep the same width of deck, that means we now have to go up to a 16-inch screen. That's what it equates to. I'll go ahead and link a tool in the description for you to do these calculations yourself, but I've already done them for you. It's a 16-inch screen that would make it to where we still have the full-size keyboard, this full-size trackpad. Otherwise, we have to go down to the next equivalent that's going to give us a nice resolution. That's going to be 14.6 inches, just like the Tab S8 Ultra. So we can either take a 1-inch hit in screen size and bring it down, or we can make it bigger and turn this into a more ginormous laptop to where it's no longer an ultra lightweight, ultra portable machine. It's now a 16-inch, 16 by 10 machine, just like a lot of the other laptops that are coming out these days. And you kind of have to ask yourself, what do you really want? What's important to you? Do you want that bigger size machine and you make the sacrifice in battery life? And do also know that Samsung would have to increase the resolution because 1920 by 1080p not going to work on 16 inches. You're at the breaking point here at 15.6 inches, not enough on a 16-inch panel. You're going to QHD at a very minimum, so 2K, right? So you're looking at 1440p, kiss the battery life goodbye, kiss any GPU performance goodbye as well. I know a lot of you guys are wanting to do some light gaming and stuff. Not happening once you do that. You know, you're going to take a pretty huge performance hit by making the move to 16 by 10. Don't get me wrong, I love 16 by 10. It's my favorite aspect ratio. But do keep in mind, there's no such thing as a best aspect ratio. There's only the best aspect ratio for you, for what you're doing at the current time. And your mind could change over the years. I always preferred 16 by 9. The past 2 or 3 years, I've kind of switched to 16 by 10. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, I switch back to 16 by 9. Obvious big difference between a 16 by 9 and 16 by 10 panel. When you're viewing content like we are right now, you get full screen on 16 by 9 because most content is shot in a 16 by 9 format. So it really comes down to your use cases, comes down to what you're doing, and if you're viewing a lot of content. If the media experience is important to you, because this is a Super AMOLED panel, it's designed to look nice. It does look pretty. So videos and content look fantastic on this machine. And if that's the name of your game, 16 by 9 is actually what you want. Otherwise, you're looking at black bars on the top and bottom, and you're going to have to pinch in and lose some of the side content in order to get full screen. 1080p, let's talk about that real quick. I would love to see QHD on here. I'd love to see it be 1440p, but keep in mind right now we're getting 9 to 10 hours battery life. Once you up that to 1440p, you're going to bring that down to probably 7 to 8. You're going to lose an hour or two, for sure. You're pushing more pixels, you're going to lose battery life. That's just, you know, with laptops, it's always the same game. Taketh and giveth. In order to take something, you have to give something away, and vice versa. You're not getting something without there being a repercussion. It doesn't exist in the world of laptops. So by upping the resolution, you're upping the demands on the GPU. Remember, we have dedicated graphics here, so that you're putting a lot more pressure on that dedicated GPU. You're killing the battery life. You'll be taking a hit in the gaming performance, if that's important to you, and an overall hit in anything that's graphical intensive, right? Anything that utilizes a GPU is going to take a little bit of a hit because you've got more pixels to push on the screen. And look at the screen itself. Just look at it. Let's fold this down a little bit more. It is a gorgeous screen. It is absolutely gorgeous. All right, guys, next up, let's test the audio. To get a better understanding of how well this year's model performs, let's compare it to last year's. So let's start with last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360. For the sake of thoroughness, you can see that we have the volume slider on YouTube all the way up. volume all the way up. Let's go ahead and play a little clip. I'll go ahead and put my microphone right in front of the machines. Okay, that's last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360. Same thing on the new machine. Let's take a look here. We have the volume all the way up on YouTube. And if we look at the sound settings, we're going to go ahead and turn it all the way up. All right, guys, as you can hear, the new model is much louder. The sound is much fuller. One mistake I made in the unboxing video, like I mentioned earlier, is that I did not enable Dolby Atmos. If you do pick up either one of these machines, you definitely want to do that right off the bat. Let me go ahead and show you how to make that adjustment. Let me go ahead and get last year's model out of the way. You go ahead and go to start typing in the word Dolby. Click on Dolby Access, which gets you to your Dolby Atmos settings. Then you're going to want to go to Settings, and then to More Settings, and you'll see that this is a default. Disable all speaker and headphone effects. When you first get the machine, this is going to be on. I highly recommend that you switch this to off and go ahead and at least start with a dynamic setting. That's a good all-around setting. This is going to boost your volume levels and the overall stereo width of the sound. You have a lot of fine-tuning options as well as for games, movies, music, voice, and you can also do your own custom settings if you want to do your own custom EQing. And you can also adjust the surround virtualizer, which impacts how wide the sound sounds. And you also have a volume leveler for times when you're dealing with music or spoken word type tracks that have boosts in the audio and you want to go ahead and level that off. So you have all these features built into Dolby Atmos. So I highly recommend you make this adjustment once you get the machine. All right, next up, let's talk about the webcam. So to test out the webcam, you'll go to Start and just type Camera. And now I'll show you guys some sample footage from the webcam. I don't really like my googly eyes on the screen too much, so you'll see here that I'm just wearing some sunglasses like I typically do. But you see that we have the intelligent auto framing, which is really nice. It's keeping track. It's keeping track of me well. The quality is much improved over last year's. You can see it's handling light very well. And we have an improvement from 720p to 1080p. So things are looking a lot sharper. Like I said, the light handling is much better. You can add different effects, different background effects, and like we mentioned, you have the auto framing. All right, so that's a look at this year's webcam. Next up is why would you choose a Samsung laptop over all of the other machines available in the vast sea of laptops that are out there? Well, I have a few reasons. Number one, the Samsung ecosystem. So if you already have Samsung devices like a Galaxy phone or one of the new Galaxy tablets that have come out, this works seamlessly with all your other products. You have a second screen feature in which you can control the Tab S8 or whatever other tablet you may have from Samsung without any other additional software. You have Samsung Flow that allows you to control your phone and tablet right from your laptop. And when I mean control, I mean fully control it. In addition to that, there's Quick Share, there's Link Share, there's the awesome screen recorder that I use for a lot of the videos here on the channel. The next main reason, and the big one for me, right here, the S Pen. It's all about the S Pen. Once you start using this thing, you will never go back to not using it. I swear that this YouTube channel lives and dies by this S Pen. I don't think this channel would exist if I didn't have it. And with the S Pen, you have all kinds of functionality. I mean, you can create notes, you can take screen recordings, screen scrapes, you can do live messages, you have pinup, you can interact with drawing applications like Photoshop. You can also use Clip Studio Paint, which this happens to come with a 6-month free subscription for. The S Pen performance on here is mind-boggling good. But don't take my word for it. Let's go to some B-roll footage that I did on a recent video showing the S Pen performance of this year's model versus last year's versus the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra. And this year's Galaxy Book2 Pro 360 is right in line with the Tab S8 Ultra. Let's take a look. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and pull up some footage of last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360. And I want you to pay real close attention between where the pen is actually touching and where you're able to see the line. Do you see that little bit of delay? You see how there's kind of that missing gap there as I'm drawing across the screen? Not much, it's not bad. You don't really notice it in normal operation, but obviously it is there. You guys can see the latency. All right, now let's switch over to the latest Galaxy Book2 Pro 360, which is supposed to be identical to last year's. I want you to pay very close attention to the pen input. Look at that. What does that remind you of there? I'll tell you what it reminds me of. The Tab S8 Ultra. Look at that closely. Let's go ahead and put that Tab S8 Ultra footage up again. All right. Look at that real close. Let's come back to this footage. Look at that real close. And lastly, let's take a look at last year's Galaxy Book Pro 360 one last time. Do you see that? Just a little bit. It's not a big deal or anything. You know, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of this. I'm just trying to be very thorough so you guys have the most complete details that I can possibly give you. There is a little difference. And somehow, some way, I think Samsung has improved the S Pen performance, at least slightly. Another reason to consider Samsung laptops over other machines is that, well, it's Samsung. And what I mean by that is that unlike other laptop manufacturers, you are looking at incredible pre-order deals and you're looking at fantastic trade-in deals that you're not going to see from other manufacturers. I'll give you guys an example. So this retails for $1,549. I did not pay $1,549 for this. I paid closer to $1,100 for it. And the way that was achievable is during the pre-order deal, they offered trade-in values for their watches, tablets, different phones, not just from Samsung, from all different manufacturers. One of the options was a Gear S3 watch. They were offering $350 trade-in. I grabbed one off Amazon for $100. So that's a $250 swing in my favor. That brings the price down to $1,300. In addition to that, they gave away a 32-inch gaming monitor. Retail price on that is $329. Sometimes it goes down to $229. Nonetheless, on the street, so to speak, you can easily get $150 for it, bringing the price down to the machine that I got to roughly $1,150. For $1,150, this is an amazing machine. I have no quandaries at all spending that kind of money on a brand new flagship laptop that has Intel 12th Gen. You don't get those deals with any other manufacturer, not even Apple on their MacBooks. It's not happening. So I do strongly suggest that when you are keeping your eyes peeled for Samsung devices, including their laptops, the most consideration should happen during the pre-order time. That's when you're going to get the best bang for your buck. But don't worry, you're not out of luck. This $1,549 price tag, it won't be forever. It is going to be the main price that they'll sell it for until the next generation comes out. But in 2 to 3 months, once the initial sales are wrapped up and things start to slow down, you're going to see this at Best Buy and on Samsung.com for $1,249, $1,299, just like we did with last year's model. And that'll happen 2 or 3 times throughout this year. We'll definitely see it again around Black Friday. When that does happen, that's the time to take advantage of it. $1,549 for a 1080p laptop, that's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But for all the flagship specs that we have on here, at closer to the $1,100 to $1,200 price point, for a fully spec'd out 15.6-inch ultralight machine like this, that is a steal. So that is one of the main things I love about Samsung. And just so you guys know, in all my years of buying Samsung products, since the S3 and the Note 3, I've yet to ever pay full price for a Samsung machine. And I strongly advise you guys to do the same. Just keep a lookout. Keep a lookout on their site for the trade-in deals too. Right now, that Gear S3 watch went down to $100 trade-in value. That's what they do. They start out hot, and then they kind of taper off, and then the trade-in incentives will pick back up. They'll pick back up in 2 to 3 months once the sales slow down. Okay guys, so the last part of this video, I've basically taken a bunch of notes. You know, we're kind of going off the cuff here. You know, we're done with the formal stuff now. Now we're talking about all the little things that make up a laptop that I want to touch base with you guys on this particular machine. So one of them I had was fingerprints. We already touched base on that. This is the second best performing as far as repelling fingerprints. Silver being the best, then this one, then burgundy. I'd say the burgundy model is much like last year's Mystic Navy model. They're fingerprint magnets. Next up is fan noise. So when you first get this machine, the first, I will say 3 to 4 hours, expect the fans to roar. It's doing a bunch of updates. It's getting Windows 11 ready. It's finalizing all the initial setup stuff that it had from the factory. It takes a few hours, guys. I really notice the fans going full board no matter what performance setting you have it on. But when you go into the next day and after you've done 3 or 4 restarts to do all the updates, the fans quiet down to nothing, just like you hear now. I don't even think you guys have heard the fans kick on once because there's no need to. It's just sitting here. But when you first do get it, you will hear those fans going, even when it is just sitting here. Next thing is there's quite a few complaints. I shouldn't say quite a few, but there's a few complaints of last year's model's screen being fragile. And a lot of you guys are concerned with this year's model being fragile as well. Here's my take on it, guys. I think this is what's causing it. So if we close this down, and if you grab this right here, and you hold it by this area, and you squeeze in, you have the potential to damage a screen because this has a little bit of flex in it. Not near as much as last year. It's much improved over last year's model. If I squeeze in on this part, I can easily squeeze in on this part, easily. But we don't have quite as much flex on the newer model. However, if you are going to grab it from this side, I recommend grabbing it a little closer to here or a little closer to here so you're near the actual hinges itself instead of being in the middle where there's nothing to support it. Or grab it from this area. S Pen storage. So the best spots that I found on this machine to store your S Pen is right here in this area, right on the back corner when you're using it. Let's see if that shows up in the video. Let me pull it a little closer to us. I like it right here when I'm actually actively using it, taking notes, and I want to put it back. I'll grab the pen, just put it back up here, leave it there. It'll kind of just sit there cattywampus however it wants. Grab it again. And while I'm using it long term, if I want the most secure storage for this pen that there is, that goes right down in here. Let me make sure that's in view for you guys. Ooh, that is strong. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere if you have it right here in this section. It is extremely, extremely strong. This magnet is by far the strongest on the whole area of the laptop. And I've taken this S Pen and gone over the whole thing, guys, everywhere. So you guys know. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about is multi-control. So we've been seeing this touted as a new feature on the Galaxy Book2 Pro 360 where it lets you seamlessly move your mouse cursor from it to whatever device you have to the side here, like let's say the Tab S8, Tab S8 Ultra, or also your Galaxy phone over to the left. Unfortunately, guys, as of the making of this video, I have not found anything concrete on how to enable this or to use this functionality. As soon as I know more about it, I'll definitely bring it to you. I'm chomping at the bit to try it out. So if you have any info on it, please let me know. I'm not finding anything yet. Another thing too, guys, that I want to mention is that if you plan on putting this on the charger overnight, you want to enable battery protection. Let me go ahead and show you how to do that real quick. So you'll go to Start. You're going to go ahead and type Samsung Settings. There it is. You go down to Battery and Performance, and you'll see our first option. To extend the lifespan of your battery, limit the maximum charge to 85%. I keep this on, that way I'm not pegging it at 100% overnight, and I don't have to worry about leaving it on. Another setting I want to show you guys, if you happen to be new to Samsung laptops, is you have the ability to make the screen even a little bit brighter than what the default option is by going up and down with the toggle here. We go ahead and go to the Start menu. I'm going to type Intel. You'll see we have Intel Graphics Command Center. Go ahead and click on that. And over here to the left, you have this monitor looking icon. Go ahead and click on that. You're going to want to click on Color. Scroll down just a little bit and make sure that on the settings section we have all colors selected and not RGB. So go ahead and go back to all colors. And here we have a brightness slider. It's like a master control slider that we can adjust the overall brightness. You see it go down to dim, and we can crank this way up. I suggest not going above 50 to 55. It starts to get really washed out. And the default is set to 38. We'll go ahead and put it back. But this is really handy if you find yourselves in outdoor situations. Speaking of outdoor, let me go ahead and show you guys real quick what this screen looks like outdoors compared to last year's model. Here's some footage from a previous video. Here's last year's model. Let me zoom out a little bit. Here's this year's model. As you can see, the screen is quite a bit brighter than last year's model, so we definitely have an improvement there. Another thing that's been coming up quite a bit, a few of you have asked about, is the screen wobble. So we'll go ahead and bring in last year's model again. All right, so let's go ahead and wiggle last year's screen a little bit so you can get an idea of how much it moves. Okay, let's put it up a little higher so you can get the top-down view of it. That looks a little better. you know, the hinge is kind of a little loose. You have a little bit of play right here, you know, before it gets stiff. It gets stiff here, gets stiff right there. There's a little bit of wiggle room. Let's go ahead and move this out of the way a little. Let's go to this year's model. We'll put the screen up top here. Here's the screen wobble that you see. You'll see that it kind of bounces back a little bit faster, and that's because this is a tighter hinge. It goes tight here, tight here. There's only like this much free play in the hinge as opposed to all this free play in last year's model that we have. So they have improved the hinge overall. Another common complaint that a lot of you guys had about last year's model didn't really bother me any, but it did bother some of you, and that is the flex in the keyboard deck. And what that means is when you rest this on your lap or if you're laying in bed and you go to press on the trackpad and there's nothing underneath it, like you have your legs on this part of the chassis, you'll get accidental clicks on the trackpad. And we can demonstrate that real quick. Let me show you. Listen real closely with last year's model. I'm pushing up from the bottom, and I don't even have to really do that. I can do it right here. Okay? Basically, this deck has a lot of flex in it. That's the gripe, is there's too much flex in the deck from last year's model. Let's go ahead and close that out and move it out of the way. Let's go to this year's model. Let's do the same thing. Let's put it up here. Okay. Nothing. This deck is a lot more rigid. They've really stiffened it up, so this whole bottom plate has been reinforced. There's no more accidental clicking going on. I know that's a big gripe for a lot of you guys, and Samsung has resolved it with this year's model. Another thing I want to mention is that during the first couple of days, I did notice that the battery life and the overall performance was a little bit on the sluggish side. Once I got all the updates done, and once that fan noise quieted down, and once it got settled in and I started putting my own applications on it, I noticed that all of that went away. The battery life just improved immediately. The performance increased. You're going to notice that this thing performs very well after you get settled in with it. Give it 48, 72 hours. Don't judge it the first couple days. Get past those first couple days, and I think you're going to be very, very impressed with this machine. So what do I want to see for next year's model? Well, off the bat, I want to see a minimum of 16 gigabytes of RAM. 8 gigabytes, not cool, Samsung. Not cool at all. I don't even know why that's offered as an option this year. That's actually kind of ridiculous. It's 2022. 16 gigabytes minimum with a 32 gigabyte option. That needs to happen next year, and I pretty much guarantee you that's definitely going to happen. Another thing I want to see are additional display options. You know, I don't personally mind the 1080p, but it would be nice, it would be great if we got a QHD option. Let's see that 1440p option on this 15-inch screen, because I think a lot of you, including myself, would opt to pay a little bit extra for that and take the little bit of hit in battery life. I'm willing to make that sacrifice, and I know a lot of you guys are too, to get a little bit sharper screen and to get that PPI closer up. You know, that QHD will get us closer to 180, 190. That's a lot more tolerable. If they went 4K, we're in the 200s. I don't think 4K is necessary on 15.6 inches, but that QHD sure would be nice. And the other thing I want to see, PCI Gen 4. The storage right now is maxed at PCI Gen 3. We're stuck at that bandwidth as far as the internal storage goes, and I would like to see Gen 4 to be the standard moving forward with next year's model. All right, guys, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please drop them down in the comments section. I try to get to everyone. I really do. I try to make it a point to get to every single comment I see. So if you have some feedback, some criticisms, please do keep in mind that I am new at this. I'm growing as a creator. I'm trying to grow as a reviewer and as someone that's new to providing information to other people. You know, it's a learning curve for me, guys. So hopefully as these reviews go on, I get a little bit more mature and can make the reviews a little bit more concise. But as it is now, guys, this is my full review of the Galaxy Book2 Pro 360. Not all inclusive. We'll touch on a lot more things in the coming weeks. We're going to touch base on video editing. A lot of you have been requesting that I compare this to last year's model for video editing in addition to gaming. So we will touch base on that. And there's also going to be a comparison video comparing this to the Tab S8 Ultra. All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching.